Everybody is having a good day so far. Welcome to Vulcan Lokring training. We're going to discuss repair refrigeration appliances with the Lokring tool. Okay, we're gonna stick with the Lokring that everybody uses and not the mini press. Okay, this will be dedicated to the tool itself. Okay, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. First thing I wanted to do was is say a special thank you to Encompass. Thank you for sponsoring uh, training. Every technician always needs that, um, and there's nothing that a technician doesn't need more than training. Okay, we can all learn something every single day that we are around. Okay. Um, So once again, thanks to Encompass and thank you Lokring for providing this training. So at the end of this program, we will go over um, the Encompass Easy Stock program. It's a pretty it's I've done this for the last almost year, and I figure it's about time that we should take that and do that at the very end because most of you have already seen that presentation, and we want to make sure that we have enough time to get through this class. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on. So as you can see here, here's a technician using the lock ring and using to replace a compressor. Okay, so what are the advantages of lock ring over um, conventional torch? We're going to go over that. We're going to have areas that we can use the lock ring tool, the functional principle of the lock ring tool, repair possibilities, technical specification, test laboratory. We're going to talk about the assembly tool, um, the sealant, which is called lock prep, um, uh, assembly instructions, customer support, and then we'll end with the conclusion. Okay. So, what are some of the advantages of lock ring versus brazing? I mean, I can tell you a whole bunch of different things that are a whole lot better than carrying a torch and recovery equipment and everything else into the house. But let's go through. There's a few here. Uh, it's suitable for flammable refrigerants. You can use it on any refrigerant. I would tell you that I would use this now instead of a torch. Once you become proficient at the lock ring method, oh man, it's just leaps and bounds above a torch. I will put the torch way behind the lock ring. Okay, it's customer friendly, on site service with reduced logistics cost. Huge bunch of information is a whole lot packed into one little thing. So one of the things let's talk about is it's customer friendly. Okay, um, I have a case that I carry in. It's a very nice looking case. The old one is a very hard case, and the new one is a smaller case that I really like. So it's customer friendly. Okay, I don't have everything that I had to have with my torch. I don't have to have that whole setup. Okay, I've reduced logistics cost. You have to buy the lock prep, and you have to make sure that it's fresh. You have to buy the fitting, but other than that, that's all. That's all that you have to provide. Whenever I was walking with the torch, I had to have brazing rod. I had to have flux. Even though most people don't use flux anymore, I still use flux whenever I'm brazing. Um, I had I had to have gas that I had to buy. And if I'm using oxygen and acetylene, I have to have both of those tanks. It's cumbersome. Even though the one that I have is a smaller version of the oxygen acetylene system. It's got a small, basically a 2-3 pound um, oxygen, 2 to 3 pound acetylene, but I still have that to carry in. And whenever I'm carrying that in, I have to carry my torch box because I have fittings that I have to have to be able to braze on so that I can get into the system. Not only that, I've got to have my pinch off pliers because I actually have to pinch things off because I can't leave that in a home. That's against the law. Okay, so that would be my reduced logistics cost. Okay, it's clean, fast, and reliable. It is reliable as long as you do what we will cover here. You should never have any problems. Okay, the biggest problem that people have is not putting the lock prep and spinning the tube to make sure that it gets totally all around and it insert the tube all the way in. That is the main problems that we have seen. Okay, assembly possible in the highly combustible areas, even with heavy foot traffic or during business operations. Okay, you're going to be in a customer's home. There's always a cat, a dog, kids, the customer, and even if the customer tells you, "Oh, I'll stay out of your way," 9 times out of 10, they end up in your way anyway. You know, so it like I said, the heavy foot track. Excuse me, I'll spit it out in a minute. The heavy foot traffic is not concerned. Okay, it's a simple assembly without any power that's needed. Okay, I still have my old what I used to have to heat Freon up in, and a dial charge, and I had to plug it in because if I don't heat it up, it's not as reliable and doesn't get in as fast. Okay, no heavy brazing equipment. We've already been through that. Okay, no brazing related quality problems. Okay, if you're not proficient with a torch, you have all kinds of other problems that you're actually having to deal with. Okay, um, so that's one of the issues that you have. Another issue is it's the the quality of your brazing is directly effective on how many years you've been doing it and how many seal systems you performed. Okay, so brazing versus Lokring. So as I'm brazing, and you can't really tell here with the one that is brazed, but a lot of times what will happen is if if I'm sucking if I'm using heat and I'm sucking that in, um, the two pipes put together, I will actually have an issue, and I may get it so that I end up with something inside the pipe that breaks off and ends up clogging up my dryer. I have seen that. And if it gets down into certain places, in your capillary tube, you have a whole lot of problems. Well, with Lokring, you don't really have this problem. Okay, we're going to go through the whole Lokring process. So we're going to go ahead and keep on rolling right here. Okay, so areas of application with there are no there's nothing that you can't use it for. Okay, household refrigerator appliances, refrigerators, freezers, wine coolers, You can anything that has a refrigeration line in it, you can use it for. Okay, in the home appliance side of everything. Okay, ready to use it for refrigeration equipment. For those of you that do that do like commercial, most of those you can use your Lokring with. Okay, my refrigeration cabinets, my bar. What they mean by bars, I have no idea. I would tell you that you could use it on your refrigeration cabinets. You can use it on chillers. You can use it on ice machines. You can use it on several on like most of these items. Okay, so refrigeration equipment for catering, sales counter refrigerators, flow through coolers, portable cooling systems, almost anything that has a refrigeration line, you can use your Lokring tool for. Okay, so let's get down into the nitty gritty right now. We're going to talk about the functional principle of the Lokring connections. Okay, so here's the components, okay, of your Lokring. Okay, I have two. This one is brass. Okay, we're going to get through, and we're going to understand that later on there are some different uh, fittings. Okay, this is a brass connector, brass to brass, and we have a lock prep. Okay, so I'm going to cut the line. Okay, I will, whenever I cut that line, I will take and insert um, part of my tube into the corner of the into one side. Like take tube number on the left there. I'm going to put that tube in just a touch in. Then I'm going to use my lock prep. I use, depending on what size tube it is, that's how many drops of lock prep I'm going to use. I'm going to stick that tube all the way in until it meets the end right there. I'm going to spin that so that I make sure that I get all of the lock prep all the way around. Okay. Once I do that, I'm going to insert the other side. I'm also going to take it and spin it, make sure that it's all the way around, and I have good coating all the way around. Okay. So as you can tell, that C right there on the chart below, the first part of the C, the first line there, that is actually where I'm going to insert my tube, and then I'm going to spin it. Okay. Well, I'm going to insert it to that point. I'm going to put my lock prep on it. Once I put my lock prep on it, I'm going to press it all the way in to position A, and then I'm going to spin it, spin the fitting. Then I'm going to put the side B in and do the exact same thing. Okay, I've got to make sure that I have it all the way in. It's the only problem that I'm going to have is, one, not getting the correct lock prep on. Okay, we're going to go through about how many drops we should use of lock prep. I'm going to pre-warn you that there is a half a drop that they recommend. I've yet to figure out what a half a drop is, but that's me. Okay, like I said, you're gonna put the correct amount of lock prep on it. I'm going to make sure that I insert it all the way till it stops. Okay, I know about how far that is because, as you can tell, that's about, in my in the diagram here, you can see right there how far it is. Okay, so repairing possibilities with my Lokring. Okay, I can replace a compressor, I can replace a filter dryer, can replace a charging tube. Okay, I can replace leaky braze connections. If something happens, and I'm going to give you a perfect example. Okay, there's your steel line that runs on the back side of your refrigerator. Some of these don't have, but we're on this refrigerator that we're talking about. right here that you're looking at, okay, that steel line right there gets hot, okay. It could be that you find that you have a leak in that line. Can I repair that with Lokring? Yes, you most certainly can. You may have to cut a little place for you to be able to put it in and effectively use it. But yeah, you can certainly do that. If I have to replace the whole condensing coil, I replace the whole condensing coil, and I can do that with my lock prep. Okay, I can use this to replace almost any line in the refrigerator. Okay. Um, so here is the list of materials. I had told you that you know you can use just about anything. All right. So each of these are set by their I, I can't think of the word right now. Cu is copper. Okay. So it's copper to copper. That I would use this one on the top. That's the brass to brass with a brass connector. Okay. If I'm going to use a copper to steel, I'm going to use the same thing. Okay. I'm going to use a, a brass fitting with both connectors are brass. Okay. That would make it a copper to steel connection that would make that work properly. Okay. If I've got a steel to steel connection, same thing. Okay. I'm going to use the fitting is a brass with two copper ends. So I'm going to have that fitting right there is going to be my steel to steel. Okay. If I have aluminum to aluminum connection, I'm going to use an aluminum connector with two aluminum ends. Okay. So at that point, I'm going to use an aluminum connector. I'm sorry, I brought some of these with me just so that I could show a little bit to everybody, so that we could see. So, like, uh, I'm sorry, I should have had these out. Okay, if I'm gonna do an aluminum to aluminum connector, it's right here. Okay, so you just want to make sure that these connectors are pressed in properly and that they're sealed. Okay. If I'm going to do a copper to copper connector, this is it. Okay. This is our brass fitting. Okay. If I'm going to do an aluminum, here's my aluminum to copper, which is my process tube. I'm gonna this is my fitting. Okay. Once again, it's an aluminum to aluminum. You have to the one thing of it that you have to do is you have to make sure that you have the proper fitting. Okay. If I just throw a fitting in there, it won't work. Okay. I've got to know exactly what size that fitting is. We're going to go through how to determine that information in just a few minutes. Okay. Our starter kit. Okay. This is the hand assembly tool is in the back over there. This is what the new kit looks like. Okay. I have the assembly jaws, the lock prep, the sandpaper, the dryer, the straight connectors, and the straight reducing connectors. Okay. So whenever I go I'm going to look for this. What size is this tube right here? So I have to find that out. We're going to go through and we're going to discuss on how we're going to determine that in just a few seconds here. Okay. But here's basically what comes in the kit. Okay. So my dryer selection repair. Okay. My possibilities here. If I have to repair if I have to pull out a filter dryer, I had a discussion with the technician last week. He was talking about, do I replace the filter dryer every single time? I'm telling you that in my experience, okay, that's my experience, I am going to make sure that I change the filter dryer every time that I replace a compressor. If I open that system up, I'm going to replace the filter dryer. Okay. If you don't, that's you. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it has been my experience. If I don't replace that filter dryer, especially if I'm working on the low side, and then it has sucked a little moisture in, I may end up with a clog in my filter dryer. So I just replace it. If you don't, that's like I said, that's you. Okay. So we've got a liquid line replacement right here. And then we've got the dryer capillary tube. So, here's a fitting for a brass to aluminum. Okay. So my dryer filter possibilities. Okay. Some of the filter dryers still come with literally, here, let me bend this down a little bit. A little process that I can tap into the system with. Okay. A lot of the newer dryers don't have this, although this one came out of a brand new refrigerator. That this filter dryer right here. Okay. But a lot of them don't have it. Okay. So the filter dryer, okay, it's specially designed for Lokring application for all HC and HFC refrigerants. Okay, it'll work on any refrigerant. Okay, protects the refrigerator against moisture, acids, dirt particles, and it's filled with the desiccant. Okay, and it's an XH9 desiccant. Okay, that's what's inside the filter dryer itself. That's whenever you shake this, you can hear the desiccant running in the filter dryer itself. Okay, so my evaporator sections. Okay, here's my capillary tube that I can patch. My evaporator suction line, that's the same thing. Okay. So as you can tell here, it's our, as we had talked, this is my copper to, if you notice, that's a copper line. On the other side is an aluminum line. That's my aluminum to aluminum connector. If I'm using copper to aluminum, okay, on the suction line here, that also is an aluminum to aluminum connector. Okay. You can look at the chart over here, and it shows you exactly where you can, where those pieces are going. Okay. My condenser side. Okay. If I want to use that, once again, if I'm using the condenser plate, I'm going to be using a liquid line, the hot gas line, slide plate condenser. Okay. That's the fitting right here. Again, brass to brass. Okay. The back plate condenser, brass to brass. Both of those are highlighted right here on the right. Okay. You want to make sure that you're using the right fittings for the right application. Okay. My charging tube with a stopper. Okay. My charging tube with a Schrader valve. You can see those highlighted right down here. So one of the things is if you've got a charging tube there on the suction line, you need to remove that from it. Okay. One of the things, let's go back. So one of the things about Lokring is if I'm using a valve like this one, okay, I'm going to take, once I get done, I'm going to unscrew it. I'm going to put a drop of Lokring around it. I'm going to spin that on. I'm going to tighten it down just hand tight and then a quarter of a turn. Okay. no more than a quarter of a turn, you'll break it. Make sure that that's all you have to do to if you have a Schrader valve. Okay, use the lock prep, and that will seal the system. Okay. So we have our hot gas valve. Of course, that's your brass fitting with the brass coupling. So you got both of those. And then if you got the suction line to the compressor, which is shown right down here with your Schrader valve, you're just going to once again use some lock prep to lock that down and make sure that it's sealed. Okay. Technical specifications for your Lokring connectors. If you're buying connectors for refrigerators in the home, it's a 00 type. Okay, so our technical specifications, they're all right here. Minimum tube wall thickness is important. 0.5 millimeters. Tube diameter range. It will be. You can use this for anywhere from 1.6 millimeters up to 11 millimeters. Okay, you can use a minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit to 302 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, those are all things that you need to be aware of whenever you're going in. Okay, the reference standards. Once again, you have your EN 378-2 and our ISO 14903. Okay, so our laboratory procedure to test. So what they do to test it to make sure that Lokring works for every situation for refrigerators. Okay, they have a unique laboratory for performing tests in accordance to the ISO 14903. It's available in Germany. They have a tightness test before the loads. Okay, they have a fatigue test, a freezing test, a vibration test, a pressure test. They have a vacuum test. They have a pressure test, a static pressure test, and then they have a tightness test after load test. So this is the test that they go through to make sure that the product works well, so that you don't have failures. So the only thing is, if you are having a failure, look and make sure that you're the one. Make sure that it's inserted all the way. You can tell. So some of the other tests that they do: maximum temperature, minimum temperature, maximum operating pressure. So that's the 14 tested samples necessary for the test. Before making the test, the following parameters have to be defined. Okay. Tightness test before the load. They use helium. Okay. Don't laugh. Get it? Helium. 68 degrees Fahrenheit is temperature that they get it out. They use 10 bars of pressure. And then the maximum leakage rate is 7.5 times 10 to the minus 6 millibar. So it's got to be really tight. Okay. So they did 250,000 cycles between the maximum operating pressure and the atmospheric pressure. Okay. They're doing the testing in the freezer. Okay. The freezing test. So we're going to test the samples. They're submerged in a container underwater. Pressure above water. Surface is reduced to below 500 millibars for 10 minutes. Trapped air disappears before the cavities. While restoring normal ambient pressure, cavities fill up with water. Okay. The test samples are placed in a freezer for all the tests for 30 minutes at the maximum minus, excuse me, 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Test samples are placed into water at room temperature and thawed for 5 minutes. Okay. Then they do a vibration test. As we all know, working on refrigerators, we always have vibrations that occur whenever the compressor starts, shuts down. We have these vibrations. Plus, sometimes when it's running, depending on the compressor, you can get some vibration while it's running. Okay. So that the way that they test it is they have a 2 million load cycles. They use a frequency of up to 200 hertz. The aptitude depends on the size of the connection. So this one depends on what kind of connection is made. On our product, it's gonna be, they're gonna have all that problems. Okay. The temperature cycle test, alternating temperature between minimum and maximum temperature. The temperature is reached. Test samples will be inflated to maximum operating pressure for 2 minutes. Okay. The second step of that cycle, okay, they run 200 cycles. The maximum temperature is held. The pressure alternates between the atmospheric pressure and the maximum operating pressure. Okay. They literally run it both. They run step one, okay, is the alternating temperature. It's going to go to maximum, to minimum, to maximum, okay? They're going to do that 50 times, okay? When the maximum temperature is reached, the test samples will be inflated to maximum operating pressure for 2 minutes. That way they are showing that this has actually has no leaks shown. Okay. The vacuum test, they pull a vacuum for an hour. The temperature is 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and the maximum pressure is 0.2 kPas. Okay. The pressure test in the static mode, they run it for a minute. They have 5 minutes, 5 times maximum operating pressure, or theoretical maximum load of the tube. Okay. So they're testing this time and time and time again. Okay. The Lokring connection is always stronger than the tube connection itself. That's what they have done to make sure that their product is the best that it can be. Okay. Tightness test. They use a helium, like we said. Temperature is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The pressure difference is 10 bars, which is 145 psi. The maximum leakage rate is 7.5 times 10 to the minus 6 millibar. So that is huge. That is small, real small. Okay. So now we're going to get into the meat. This is the meat of our class here. Okay. So this is the H Mark V is what it's called. Okay. It was specially developed for Lokring assembly, patented lever action motion for assembly with minimum effort. Okay. The assembly jaws are easy to change for different tube diameters. So if I'm using if I get something above the normal 7.5 millimeter is the highest that several of the jaws will go, I can change the jaw out and use that for if I'm using, like, let's take an example of HVAC is a good example. Okay. Or if I'm using if I'm doing some coolers, like in a grocery store, some of those have larger connectors. Okay. Both handles bend for use in hard to reach areas. Okay. It's German technology. Okay. These are your jaw assemblies. Okay. These are suitable for double-sided assembly of Lokring connectors. Okay. There's an M8 tube for tubes that are 1.6 to 8.5 millimeters, 1/16 of an inch to 5/16 of an inch. Okay. If I have a larger tube, I have to put a new jaw in there, and that's for between 9 to 11 millimeters or 3/8 tubing. Okay. So the anti-sealant, okay, lock prep G, I'm sorry, 65G, all right? Very important. Number one, that you make sure that you get it in the correct place and you spin the tube, okay? And what does the lock prep actually do? It actually compensates, okay, for any unevenness in the surface tube. It hardens under oxygen exclusion and in contact with free metal ions. Okay, it stays elastic and ensures that every Lokring connection is hermetically sealed. Okay, every time that you take and use a piece of sandpaper on a piece of copper, you create a groove. Okay, if you're using one of the Brillo pads and using that, you're still creating a groove. No matter how small that groove is. So that lock ring comes in and fills in any of those grooves, and it seals, hermetically seals everything. Okay. So you're going to clean your tube ends. Okay. I do not like using the method on the left. Okay. I was trained to use the method on the right. Okay. That is the way that I have always done whenever I'm doing any kind of assembly. I've always used that method, which is I call it the rollover method. Okay. I roll over twice and then I go back and forth and make sure that I have sanded it properly. Okay. So lock prep, I'm going to put the lock prep into the tube ends. You can tell how close that is. Whenever I do it, I actually insert the tube just the tip of the tube in. Okay. Just put that tip of that tube in. Then I put my drops of lock prep on, and then I spin it. Okay. If I'm using a tube that I'm going to have another connector on, I can spin that tube freely inside the connector itself. If I don't, and I have these problems, this one that I have, that I'm doing two copper lines, I can actually do the same thing on both sides, the left and the right, and then I can spin that fitting itself over and over and over after I have inserted it the full way. Okay. All right. So you're going to, like I said, you're going to insert this, okay, into the Lokring connector, and the tubes reach the inner stop. Okay. The inner stop you can see right there at the center. Okay. Rotate the Lokring connector 360 degrees. That distributes the Lokring evenly, and that gives me my Lokring curing time. Okay, you've got to let it sit for at least. I like to do it for 3 to 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. So here's how you do that. The one thing that we did not talk about is, I thought it was in here. No. Okay. I'm going to go back. Okay. The most important thing that you can do whenever I'm looking for lock prep, well, whenever I'm looking for my lock prep, I'm going to make sure that my lock prep, it comes with a date stamped on the lock prep itself. Okay. I did a class last week in Dallas, Texas, and there were 3 bottles of lock prep. out of the 3 bottles of lock prep, 2 had expired. Do not use lock prep. It is right on the very bottom of the tube of the on the tube lock prep itself. Right at the very bottom, you will see a date. Okay, it's stamped on it. Make sure that you're not. It's not over. You haven't expired. That date has not expired. If you have, don't use it. It will not work. Okay. So make sure I'm trying to make sure that you have all the necessary tools that you need to be successful. Okay. If you use that lock prep, you will not get a seal like you should. Okay. You're gonna have to forgive me. I have a little bit of a cold. Okay. So I'm going to insert both ends of the tube in the lock ring connector. I've made sure that my lock prep is the right date. It's not old. Okay. I'm going to rotate the lock ring connector 360 degrees. That way I distribute the lock prep evenly. Then I'm going to use the correct curing time for the lock prep. Curing time is dependent upon the temperature. Okay. The hotter the temperature, the less time that you have to wait. The colder the temperature, the more time that you have to wait. Okay, so I'm gonna push the rings. Okay, I'm gonna take and insert the ring into my lock ring tool. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna hold that lock ring tool with my arm. I am left-handed. There is a left-handed and a right-handed usage, all for the same tool. It's great. That way, anybody can do it. That doesn't matter if they're left-handed or right-handed. Okay. On our other class, we're going to have a defined. We'll show you how to do it. Okay, we'll show you how it's done. All right. Today is like the basics. So I've got my tube. If you see right here, the number one, my tube all of those are pressed in all the way. Okay, I'm going to insert that into my tool, my lock ring tool. Okay, I'm going to then place that tool. I'm going to hold the tool with my hand. I'm going to hold that fitting with my hand so that I make sure that I keep it flat, because if I get it off and it comes in at an angle, I will not get the pressure to close that properly. Okay, so you've got to make sure that you hold that, both the tool and the fitting, flat and even, because if you don't, you will not get a correct seal. Okay, this is where's the one? Here is the one that I actually did. Okay, so as you can tell on this end over here, it's bent. Okay, so I had this. It was placed in a vise. You can tell that there's the slight bend right here. Okay, that's okay, but you can't have it much more than that. You don't want to flatten the tube so that you can't use it. Okay, but once you get all these joints done, there will be no space. There will be a little space right there is on the ring that you're going to have. I want that all the way around flat against it. Okay. How do I check that to be sure? Because if I've got it in a if I've got it in a refrigerator, I may not be able to see the back side of that. So how am I going to know? Okay. I'm going to use a mirror, right? Everybody, if you've done any kind of refrigeration work before, you should have a mirror. Okay. I've got 3 different kinds of mirrors. I've got one that I can actually clamp on and look behind it. at one, use the mirror clamps on, and I can adjust it how I want it to. I've got one that I used to carry in my pocket. You can use any kind of mirror that you've got. You just want to make sure that whenever you're closing that gap, that you have closed it all the way through. Okay. I'm going to respect the Lokring curing time, a minimum of 10 minutes. I was wrong. It's 10 minutes. Okay. If you have a problem and you want customer support, okay, Lokring has customer support. Okay. Training, in-depth training. We offer in-depth training. We have a training right now that is going on very soon. And it's going to be both Lokring and torch. So that's a 4-day class that is being done in it's been done in Lawrenceville. Okay, so you can sign up by going to the Encompass website. Click on training, and you can find it down there, and you can register. All right. So here's the lockbox presentation. Okay, this just shows you how it should be done. So you can get all of this if you want to spend your money on it. Okay, lockbox presentation includes the assembly samples, the hand assembly tool with jaws, lock prep 65, and samples for practicing the Lokring demonstration. Okay. Technical information. Go to this website. All right. It will give you catalogs, brochures. It shows you videos, assembly instructions, and technical documentation. It has everything that you need. I'm going to give you just a minute. You need to go to the www.vulkan.com. Okay. If you don't have, or you miss this and you say, oh man, I lost it. If you're like me, I do that a lot of times. Just send me an email, text me. If you call me, that's not a good thing. Just text me or call me, or you can talk to Reggie. There's his email and his phone number. Usually Reggie's really super busy, and he has somewhere usually his mailbox is full. So just make sure that you've gotten all of the information done that you need. And if you haven't gotten it, text me, send me an email. I will get back to you. I promise. I get texts that called me. I had one that called me about a GE washing machine the other day. Don't worry. If I don't have the answer, I'll find the answer for you. Okay. Here's the conclusion. So, Lokring versus brazing, suitable for flammable refrigerants. Okay. Customer-friendly on-site service. Okay. Reduced logistics costs. Clean, fast, and reliable. Assembly possible in high combustible areas, even with heavy traffic flow. Simple assembly without a power connection. No heavy brazing equipment. Okay, no brazing related quality problems. You can join the thousands of Lokring users. Okay, I am going to stop this, and I am going to open. I'm going to open things up in the chat. Okay, I am going to, let me remove this. Okay. Have you guys got any questions? Okay. This is kind of the introduction to Lokring. There are 2 other classes that are offered. This is the kind of the introductory class. So it's the proper usage of Lokring. These are the basic examples. We're going to have another class that is actually called the the Lokring. Um, like I said, it's we're going to use the tool. I will have the tool, and I will have pictures and demonstrations of how to use the tool. It's difficult to do it in a non-controlled setting, like I'm doing it in a living room right now. I don't have a shop area that I use, but if you have if you have Lokring, it makes things so much easier. And I'm going to tell you that if you use the Lokring kit, is not cheap. I'll be the first to tell you it's not cheap. Okay, but neither were the torches and the gauges and everything else that you did whenever you first started using brazing equipment. You have the same supply that you have to have. You have to have fittings, you have to have flux, you have to have, depending on what kind of brazing you do, silver solder sticks. They do make a soft core solder that you can do for just aluminum, but it's to me it's so much easier. Okay, they've sold me on using Lokring. The mini press, once you get in and you get used to using the Lokring tool, if you ever somebody has a mini press, and you see a demonstration of the mini press, I've had technicians actually go, you know what, the heck with this Lokring tool like that. I want this mini press. Now the mini press is about twice what the Lokring tool does. If I'm doing probably 3 to 4 refrigerators a week, okay, I'm probably going to buy the mini press. It just makes it so much easier. I mean, literally, I load it in. I hold the mini press just like I do my regular press, and then I mash a button, and it automatically squeezes. It does. I don't have to do. I don't have the cumbersomeness of it. Okay, I'm telling you, Lokring is the future. I wish they'd have had this whenever I first started, because I will guarantee you that I would have bought one. As many seal systems as I have done in my life, it would have paid for itself time and time again. Like I said, I used to work for Circuit City and Best Buy, and I probably did 5 or 6 seal systems a week. Um, so it would have been well worth my while to own a Lokring tool. Does anybody have any questions? This is going to conclude our program. The next 2 programs, one is about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. The one that that's the principles of using HFC versus CFC. Um, that's showing you the differences between you know a flammable refrigerant and one that destroys the ozone. Right now, you do not have to recover, because it is a R-600 is basically a light. It's a flammable, almost it's a methylbutane something something something. It's basically a super huge, like it has 60 grams. Some of the refrigerants have 60 grams. Some of them have 600. I had a full size refrigerator, and it actually had 600 grams of refrigerant, R-600 in it. So just make sure that whenever you're using your Lokring tool, that you're using the proper amount of refrigerant, and that you're installing it properly. Okay. I cannot, as a technician, I cannot load up a lock ring and charge it from put liquid in the low side. I will blow the gauges up, and I will probably warp a valve in the refrigerator, in the compressor itself. So just make sure that you're doing things properly. It's a whole lot. The only thing that is, you shouldn't charge a refrigerator from the high side. You should do it from the low side to begin with. Make sure that you're just doing it properly. That's the only thing that I have. The only caution that I have. So, any questions from anybody? Please put them in the comments. I don't see anything. We're running up close to our hour. So if I don't have anything else, if nobody's got any questions, on the bottom is my information and Reggie's information. Please don't hesitate to call me, text me. Well, if you call me, you're probably not going to get an answer because I'm out in the country, and some of the times I have signal, sometimes I don't. But if you text me, I'll get it, and I will get back to you. And I can call you back. You can just ask me to call you. I have no problem with that. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate everything that you do on the end. We don't get a lot of appreciation whenever we're at a customer's house. A lot of the times we're getting yelled at. But you have to remember, okay, you're coming in at a time where something is not working. So the customer is going to be a little bit upset. Just make sure that you've got your thick skin on. Okay. Love you guys. We'll talk at you later. Have a wonderful week. See you on Thursday if you come to the class on Thursday.